Alrighty, welcome everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Founder Spotlight for March 2022, 2023. Oh my goodness, I am still stuck in the past. Today our special guest is going to be Cheryl Potts. If this is your first time joining the Founder Spotlight, my name is Georgianne Gettin, and I'm the CEO and founder of GSD Solutions, and I'm also a board member at the New York Tech Alliance. And so that's why I'm going to be here interviewing Cheryl today about her experience and her company and just spotlighting her as a founder. But a few housekeeping items before we begin. We are recording this session, so if you're watching this on the replay, hello there. But just wanted to let folks that are watching live know we photograph and record, as well as audio record or events to share important discussions and experiences with other people who are unable to attend. So just want to let everyone know that. As well as you can watch the replay for this session on our YouTube channel. You could go and visit that by going to youtube.com/NYTechAlliance. And just a little bit about our community. So the New York Tech Alliance has been around for over 10 years, and our community spans over 60,000 members. And a lot of these members are based in New York, but believe it or not, people from other parts of the world, other parts of the country do join the New York Tech meetup. So that way, when they do come to New York, they want to be a part of the New York Tech Alliance. We support immigrant founders, women in tech, Latinx communities, LGBTQ, Black, Brown, all industries, universities, and just our network is far and wide. So if you aren't already a supporter or a member of the New York Tech Alliance, this is your opportunity to be a part of this thriving community. We want to give a thank you to our annual sponsors for making sure that these events and this type of programming is able to happen on a monthly basis. So thank you to all of our amazing sponsors. And then, now talking a little bit about how you as an individual can further support the New York Tech Alliance or mission and our goals. We are a nonprofit organization, and you could add a donation when you RSVP for one of our events. You could become an individual sponsor or a corporate member of the New York Tech Alliance, or simply make a small donation on our website. And you could go to nytech.org/support_NYTA in order to support and do that. And again, to just close us off, we're going to be doing our founder spotlight, where I get the opportunity to interview the amazing Cheryl Potts. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that way we could dive right into that interview between myself and Cheryl. Awesome. Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon. Some people may be joining from different parts of the world. As we mentioned, it is a virtual session. So Cheryl, if you could just go ahead and give us a little bit of background and introduction to who you are and what do you do?
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me today. My name is Cheryl Potts, and I am a copyright and royalty administrator and software engineer. And I am the founder of ClearCut, a SaaS platform for independent music creators, companies such as labels and publishers to manage the music that they own/create.
Nice. How did that combination come about? So tell us a little bit about where you started this journey. Were you in software first? Were you in music first? And I see some amazing records behind you in your office. So I'm just like, tell us a little bit about that journey. How did you get started?
Sure. Well, first, I was a software engineer. I've been a software engineer for over 20 years. But I started a side business many years ago, actually 19 years ago. First, I started off as a music publisher and then reorganized the company into an administration company. I work with independent record labels and music publishers. What does that involve? That involves making sure that any music that is released is compliant with US copyright laws and will not infringe on anyone else's copyrights. So for record labels, I make sure that all the releases and licensing and registrations and other works are completed prior to release. And for publishers, I have individual songwriters that own their own publishing companies that I also administer for. But the start of ClearCut actually was born out of the need for myself to be able to automate, at the time, the royalty accounting that I was doing on behalf of the record labels. I could not actually grow as a company, as a small independent part-time company, simply because if a record label has multiple release, some of them may have 9, 10 releases, and I have to do the royalty accounting for all of those albums. And according to the licenses, I only had 45 days to
Oh
be
my goodness.
do the statements and prepare them and release them. And at the time, I was using Excel spreadsheets. So as you can imagine, that is a lot, and that's one customer. So if you have multiple customers and you have that same 45 days, it becomes very, very difficult. So I had initially the need to look for something to be able to assist me in generating these statements on behalf of my clients.
Nice. So you had the problem and then you realized you also had the skill set. So was that first build out, since you have a background in software engineering, was that first build out made by you? How did you create it that first time? Like, did you mock it up? Did you get external developers to come and build it for you? So tell us a little bit about that, going from Excel to something, SaaS.
Well, at first, I'll be very honest with you. I went out to look to see if there was a product available for me. Now, again, this is many, many years ago. So today you might find more products on the market, but when I first looked out, there wasn't a lot. Also, the music industry is divided between record labels and publishers. So at that time, I would need to buy 2 separate products because I administer for record labels and publishers. So I was just thinking about just maybe building something, but it wasn't until a self-released artist. This is an artist that released her own music. She created her own music, she released her own music, she wrote her own songs or wrote with others, said to me, Cheryl, if you're going to build something, I too have a need. I don't understand music publishing, but I do realize I need to make sure that my music is compliant when I release. And I have others asking to use my music, and I don't know what to do. So she said, if you decide to build something, think about me and the thousands of other me's that is releasing our own music that also needs a product to help them manage their business. So at that time, I went back out and looked and said, ooh, I don't see that there is actually anything catering to this market. So with that, Clear Cut Royalty was born.
Absolutely.
So to answer your initial question, did I start off building, how did I start off? Well, working at an enterprise software company, because I was already working full-time as a software engineer. So I knew that I was not going to sit down or have the time to sit down and have a part-time business and also develop this myself. And most of the software companies I already worked for all had offshore teams. So funding the project myself, knowing that I could not afford hiring developers and QA here in the States, I looked to offshore. So I immediately was able to post my project on some of the sites that hired, offers developers. And I wrote my own functional requirements. Also the technology and background, since my background is Microsoft.NET, C# development. I wanted to make sure, hey, if I needed to jump into the code and make some changes, then I need to actually understand or know the technology. So those requirements had to be in Azure environment. I already understood an agile methodology in terms of releasing code and projects. And so I went about with my requirements, looking for a company. Initially, I hired a company to do the work, but later moved into hourly base for independent developers that work directly for us.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for that breakdown. There's a few parts that I want to call out, right? We've had quite a lot of these sessions so far. But I think you're, in the league of some of the founders that have more of that technical skill set. So we've heard a lot of stories where a founder, they don't have the technical understanding, so they try their best. And, we hear a lot of horror stories when it comes to offshore because, whether, I think one of the worst stories that I've heard, I don't think it was through the founder spotlight, but someone told me that their code was written in a completely, not just a different coding language. So any little markup was written in a whole different language altogether. So that way it was now twice as complex. So they didn't understand the coding language. And then the additional text that was inside of it was in another language that made it even twice as hard when they were trying to convert it over. So the fact that you put out your technical requirements, you knew what environment you wanted it to be built in. So like you said, you could go in there and make changes. So, that gave you an upper edge when it came to being a founder. So not only did you have the idea to, come into the music industry in this unique way, but you also had the technical backing to say, like, if this is not being built right, I could be able to catch it, flag it, or even adjust it as needed as we built out this, big conglomerate. So I wanted to tag that, as well as, what you mentioned before. So when the young lady reached out to you, you were now able to also have a niche, because you said it yourself, this industry is so big, so many different parts, so many different players. But when it comes to the independent independent artists that they're creating it themselves, publishing it themselves, writing it themselves, they're already, a solopreneur, if we want to use that word. And they now have to wear the many hats. So to now try to manage their royalties, like you just said, they have the same 45 days, and trying to do all of those things is another step. So now you're creating, you're able to niche down pretty quickly, which is another thing that certain founders don't get to until they realize, oh wow, like that doesn't work, I'm targeting this kind of client. You lose a lot of sleep, time, and money first, and then you get to the niche. So, those unique opportunities that kind of, based on your background, that presented themselves early on in your development journey, allowed you to be able to accelerate and grow. And like you said, now, this was many years ago, but now, as other players come into the industry, Clear Cut is still alive, it's still thriving, it's still doing, doing and existing for that purpose and supporting the businesses. So now I want to dive into a little bit around what were some of the challenges that you did experience? So we talked about some of the strengths and opportunities that you had, but what were some of the challenges that were a little unexpected throughout this journey of being a founder, or just even being a technical founder? So either or.
Well, a couple of things I want to mention in terms of being a technical founder. I 100% agree with you that because of my background, and also to build a product such as what we have today in Clear Cut Royalty, actually has its benefits. One thing that I want to share with you is, if anyone does use an offshore company to build, because of my administration background, I also knew that I had to own the source code, because I have read horror stories where people hired a developer offshore and did not own the source code. And in my first hiring a company, because I figure, oh, let me go with a big company, they told me, well, yes, the source code, but if we use our libraries and we use our code in it, we own that portion. And I said, no go. If you're putting in a foundation in my code, I'm going to own it. If you don't want to do that, then you just have to just code, for my platform. So I'm going to own 100% the source code of everything that is developed. And number two, also, some companies use a lot of contractors. And I had a situation where one day I came into work, and all of my current stage of development was wiped out. It was almost like we were in 4 months into the project, and then all of a sudden it looked like the first day. And I complained, because they have a project manager, I have a project manager, and I complained, like, what the heck is going on? And it was dead silence. Well, I knew, I heard that I now have new developers. So my old developers had to go on to other projects. Well, I knew, you know what, those old developers did not check in the source code. So when
Mm,
you apply new developers on a project, they overwrote. So I lost a lot of time, and because they turned around and did not check in the code right. So more of the story is, it's really important, if you're going to start using an outside, make sure you have somebody that understands software development, that understands um, how to work with developers offshore. After that incident, I turned around and hired my own developers, still offshore because they're less expensive, but they work directly for me.
absolutely. And I totally get that. And you know, like you said, that is definitely a horror story. And we've both heard and seen, because you're working on it day to day, what can happen. So what I want to flag and just highlight for everyone that's listening is just making sure that you have, so if not yourself, so Cheryl's background allowed her to have the knowledge to know what was going on. But if you can't do this stuff yourself, and we're not telling you everyone to go and get like a software engineering degree, but just maybe having an advisor, right? Someone that you can trust, you do know firsthand, that can look at it. Maybe it is a consultant that you hire, but again, you have that built relationship and advisor that you bring in. And advisors can be also paid, but someone that can look at this stuff and say, hey, there's a problem, before it escalates and gets to the point where it's not just a problem now, it's an emergency. It's a fire that we need to put out instantly. So just being able to catch those. And the second thing I want to highlight here is that, being flexible. Right. So if you have to make a change, making that change quickly, not waiting until, okay, it's bad, but it's not too bad. No, this doesn't work for us. We need to shift how we're doing things. And, we in the industry, we all call it like pivoting. And we also, what we had to do during the global pandemic, a lot of pivots were happening, but just being more conscious of not waiting until something is, hitting the fan before we say, hey, maybe we should not be going down this path. So, paying close attention, especially as you may be starting a business while you're still working your full-time job, and so you don't have as much time, but so that way you have to put in practices, procedures, or different things to allow you to say, is everything going the way it's supposed to go? If yes, proceed this way. If no, stop, proceed this way. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Now I want to ask you a little bit about, it's Women's History Month. So I definitely want to include that. So now, the music, any industry actually, women have a lot of a harder time. So what has the experience been in music, in tech, as a female founder? So if you could share a little bit of that background, as well as, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. I definitely have had some issues in terms of, or difficulty, especially when it comes to raising funds as a female founder. But I have to also say, not only as a female founder, I'm a solo founder. So that's always been, we only invest in teams.
Mm-hmm.
So I had difficulty in that. First, I'm technical. Now I don't so a lot of people hire a technical co-founder. Well, I'm technical. And also I'm in a space where a lot of VCs don't invest in the music business. And third, I also am in a space where some VCs does not understand what our product does. I had a VC one time tell me, Cheryl, you're not going to be successful because CDs are down. CD sales are not going well. And I said to him, you know what? If you think my business is about CDs, then I did a poor job in explaining to you what the product does. Now, this was before I built it out, but it just was, he just didn't get it.
Yeah.
I've had VCs say to me, well, once they get past, or once I, answer the questions about a solo founder, but then they'll say, well, Cheryl, we don't know how to assist you. Because a lot of times you're looking for VCs not only to bring money, but maybe assist you in certain areas. Some VCs may have experience with growth, scaling of companies, or they may assist in other areas. And I've had quite a few say, I don't know how to assist you. So I don't know whether this is a quick get out of jail card to tell me I'm not getting, the investment that I'm looking for. But my platform deals with copyright and royalties, and it's a difficult subject for musicians. So I've had a real big struggle. Now, I did have a investor invest in my company, and I think the advantage there was this investor husband was a musician. So she understood the pain that musicians go through. And that was my first investment. It was a VC, but they also had for like an accelerator lab portion to to their company that I was able to get an investor.
Nice. And so, thank you so much for elaborating. And again, I'm just going to call out some of the points that really struck me was where you were mentioning the fact that they were saying like, we don't know how to help you. And so that just goes into the panel of like, what's it called? Just education around what you're doing. So yes, we can all pitch and your pitch could be perfect, right? And it could be, it has all the details, but if you're talking to someone that they're not even aware or they don't even know how to get aware, right? Like if I was to give a pitch, perfect pitch deck, right? If I was to give the Airbnb pitch to a 5-year-old, it's all the materials are all there, but just because they don't have the context, right? They don't have the industry know-how, they don't have the awareness and to see that, wow, this is truly a problem. Even if I'm verbalizing and saying this is a problem, we have a solution, it still may not click. So like you said, the investor that it did click for, her partner was in the music industry and she saw the ins and outs or was proximity wise close enough to understand or just lend an air of empathy to say, wow, this is something, a solution that's being created. It's definitely needed. And I think another thing that I want to call out is just the changes, right? So tech has now been, added to every single industry, right? Tech, everything from retail or even fast food, we're going into McDonald's and Wendy's and it's, a robot that's coordinating. We need developers, we need software engineers, we need hardware technicians to handle these technologies as we build them out. But what people aren't, thinking enough about is just how can we make sure that we're not dismissing something because we don't fully understand the industry behind the tech. Like we may get the tech, but what is the industry behind the tech? So I think that is an opportunity and just like a call to action for folks to just be more willing to learn about these different industries that are popping up or these different industries that we may have not associated with tech before and that we have to now into the future. And as we see streaming platforms are getting more popular, it's still beyond that. It's still, it's not about the CDs, it's about the fact that music has been in all of our lives for, before the start of time and it will be till the end of time. And just making sure that, ownership is there, royalties, and we see it with like YouTube and now more and more people are, doing things like content creation. I'm pretty sure now a lot of people are coming back to say, okay, we get it now. How can we be involved? So is that happening? Just if you could, since you've been around for a long time, can you tell me about some of the things that have changed as the industries have changed and more people are getting involved with licensing and copywriting and using music and distribution? So if you could just share something, before it was like this and now it's like this.
Yes, before in the past, most artists, as we all know, had to be signed with a label and in order to get their music out. And today with distribution, being able to put a single track for $9.99, and it goes all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Many people see the importance of being able to manage their the music that they send out. In the past, I still run into quite a few people who are releasing the music and they don't understand if they're collaborate with others, if that they need to also get permission or licensing. And or a lot of times in your project, there are, producers may ask for money, not money, may ask for a percentage of earnings also from the track. So now music industry has, first of all, the majors understand that there is a huge market of independents releasing their own music. And they're also trying to create products or surround the independents more so now than before. But I have to share with you, it's still a learning cycle, right? So my product is not a Spotify playlist, right? So there is a big part of education that I still have to go through in terms of there's 2 copyrights in one audio track. There is the sound recording owner and the song owner. So there's a lot of education that is part of what I need to do in order to have subscribers come on board. Because if you don't understand the why,
Yeah,
then you're not going to come on board.
absolutely. And I think, as you know, a lot of industries, and just like you said, now people aren't really so focused on being on a label, a lot more independence. So I guess the barrier to entry, let's call it, like, the barrier to entry has changed, where, we want more accessibility and more opportunity and equity in the different industries, but that a lot of steps have been skipped over, because it was like this big barrier, the educational piece was a part of that. And now, since the barrier to entry is a little bit, lower, you could start recording something. You could pull out your phone right now, and before you know it, by the end of the day, you have literally a whole mixtape or some type of music made. And it's just like, did you take music, a beat from that person? And we've seen the lawsuits, we've seen the call outs, right? And so just, you forgot about the education. This is allowed, this is not allowed, this is how you do it, this is how you get your royalty, this is how you get ownership inside of whatever work that you're doing. So I'm glad that, you're really highlighting that educational piece. I'm going to I have 2 more questions for you, then I'm going to open it up to the audience that we have here. If they have any additional questions, go ahead and start putting those into the chat. You can message it to the whole group or just message it to myself directly, and I'll read it out after I ask my next 2 questions. So, my second to last question is, what hopes and dreams, do you have for Clearcut, right? In the future, where do you see yourselves in the next 5 years or 10 years? What's on the roadmap, and where do you see yourselves going?
Well, of course, I'm keeping a close eye on new technology, right? Our platform is based, again, on a lot on copyright law and the creators. The Copyright Office is now spun off a new studying AI, artificial intelligence. Currently, the Copyright Office they feel today that it has to be a human and a human intellect in terms of creating products. And there is a photographer that's challenging that, and several other people, because they want to copyright their AI works. And so I am keeping an eye on the Copyright Office as they go through the music study, AI study, and to see what the results are. With new technology, a lot of times copyright laws need to be updated because there wasn't an internet when it first was created. And so fortunately, I was part of the last music study, which was on music licensing, and they made changes on the law for the streaming services and came out with a new office, the MLC. But they're doing the same thing. So I am always on the lookout for NFTs or the AIs. This is something that I need to see that I can incorporate in my project or in my software to update it. So I am also involved with other teams that are discussing the technologies and their music teams, so I can learn about the newer technologies and to see how I can, if it's something that I need to input in our platform.
Absolutely. So just being aware of, what as they like to call it, the web 3.0,
Yes.
because all this stuff, it's a lot. I'm just like, when did we finish 2.0? I'm still here. Right. And so it's moving three times as, maybe that's why it's 3.0, it's moving three times as fast as it was before. So that's great to hear. And now we have a question in the chat I'll ask in a moment. But for you, what advice or what feedback do you want to leave with other founders out there around, being a founder, especially as different industries, different technologies coming out? What advice do you want to leave with the founders?
My advice is to
Potential founders. Yeah, go ahead.
My advice is you have to be open. First of all, I really believed in my product because I had a need, but I also had to be open because when I started up, although I had beta testers, I did all kind of surveys and see if I had a product market fit. And so when I finally launched, it they didn't run as fast as I thought they were going to run. And I had subscribers, but were they actually using the system? So you got to be able to open, test. Like I'm currently now going through some more product market fit studies. And there are some tweaks that I need to make in my platform to be able to meet the market. But I am the type of person that if I have to pivot, you have to always look at your business. And if you have to pivot, if I started off with one way and it's just not working, and you do your research, you got to be open to go ahead and make that pivot for the business. That is one thing that I would recommend. And I feel very strongly about my product, even though it's difficult about getting some VCs. If I have to bootstrap or put the money in myself and to get to the next stage, that's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to just summarize, be open, pivot, be aware of what's going on. And, if you have to bootstrap, keep it going, because we know there's beyond the amount of biases or reasons that VCs or investors may give. But once you have the proof is in the pudding, right? If you're pivoting, you're consistently updating, your business can be around and still thrive without that additional investment. Just believe in yourself and keep up the good work. So we have two questions in the chat. So I'm going to read the first question from Eric. As an employment lawyer, I have to ask, how did you handle contracting with employees outside of the US in terms of documentation and in terms of local law regarding employment, which are often more employee protective than the United States? So, how are you handling when you were hiring international staffing? Was there any extra steps that you had to take that maybe, could be helpful for the audience to know? Because I know a lot of people are using outsourcing or offshore teams, and it's even a little bit more quicker to lock people in these days. So, you started many years ago. So what was that experience like?
In terms of hiring offshore, I used a platform that mitigates between the technical outsourced and myself. I know other companies may hire directly. I like if I have an issue, then I can go to a platform to put a hold, in terms of, and have them do an investigation. So for me, that worked out well. I still even have my developers go through the same platform. Now, one thing I did do and continue to do prior to interviewing the development source, I give them an NDA. And so right away, I give that before discussing the project with them. And so far, most of the platforms and developers from the areas, most companies are giving them an NDA, so they understand it. They have no problem entering into an NDA prior to moving forward. That's the first step that I go through. In terms of employment law, I really don't have to interact with that because I'm not actually hiring them directly. I'm using this other platform because I think it protects me. I'm a small company. I'm not an IBM where, or some of the larger software companies may hire their teams directly. Maybe I'll do that at one point, but I like having I like to have a mediator, I call,
Mhm.
in case I run into an issue that I can go to them and to resolve the issue, and whether that's holding up my funds until it's resolved. But that works best for me right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. And we have a second question from Tara. Are you still using .NET for your tech stack?
.NET, yes, but it's MVC.net, and we also build on top of C#. And we also have other technologies, Bootstrap, backend and SQL Server. Again, it's just a background that I have, a .NET background, but .NET MVC.
Thank you so much. If we have any additional questions, we could go ahead and add those to the chat. And so, just for a little lightning round to see if we have any questions come in, I'm just going to ask you a few just random questions about your just, your background, your life, Cheryl. So first random question, what's your favorite food?
Ooh, probably pasta.
Pasta, what type? Noodles, what are we thinking? Favorite meal
Um,
within that?
just about any kind. Lately, I've been really on pasta, I think carbonara with the ham and the peas
Mm-hmm.
sauce. So I frequently make pasta. And also my second choice would be probably chicken. My son is like, this is a chicken family. Yes, I like a lot of chicken.
Totally hear that. Next lightning round. Where's your favorite place to travel, or somewhere that you traveled to that you just loved?
Well, I many years ago went to Paris and into Milan, and I just loved the European coffee, croissants in the cities, the cathedrals. I really, really love. But I also, my second one would be, I love beaches. So
Oh, send me to a beach any day. Yes, beach me, please.
I went to St. Kitts. I went to Aruba and I've been to St. Kitts, but St. Kitts was just out of this world. The beach and everything, it was just really, really beautiful.
Absolutely. And then our final lightning round question is, what is your wind down routine? So at nighttime, what do you like to do to get yourself ready for bed?
Do you really want to hear that? A glass of wine. I'll pull out my Cabernet Sauvignon. I just like, okay, I have to let my hair down. And I like to really relax with a nice glass of wine.
Thank you. All right, that sounds great. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending live. And thank you so much for everyone that's watching the replay. And a huge, huge, huge thank you to Cheryl for being here, sharing your journey as a founder, as well as, answering some fun lightning questions towards the end, as well as interacting with the audience and answering their questions. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, go ahead, leave some comments for Cheryl. We'll make sure we get those questions to her. Definitely check out Clear Cut if you're an independent artist, or this industry and this company can be impactful for your business. And thank you so much for everyone being here. Thank you to the New York Tech Alliance and the work that we continue to do. And we will see you next month for another Founder Spotlight. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.